at this party I was at, and I walk up to Pat, and Pat just like didn't want to like.
So
no
you
idea
went to Pat, but so the Foo Fighters were all there, but you went to Pat first.
Yeah, because he knows Pat.
I knew who Pat was,
and Pat gave him that. Pay him no mind. He's a record guy. He's a label guy. I don't have no idea who this guy is.
You know what?
Did you even know who you were?
He's the guy that screwed us. He's the guy that screwed Greg Ginn over.
That's the conversation I had with him.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, Pat, I'm sure you don't remember me, but
you're right, I don't.
I was the press guy at SST for the Ruth and Smear record. Remember you'd ask. It's a literally he asked me to send some records to Prince because Prince's office had called my office because they wanted the Opal album.
Prince's office called.
Let's get someone.
Office.
Yeah,
Who picked up that phone?
Right, because they wanted it.
What hot number?
I did take that call.
Yeah, I bet.
And so then all of the artists that are like in the it's like, oh, please make sure you send my record to Prince too, and so Pat was like, please, and that's when Pat told me I'm in the Raspberry Beret video.
Was Greg in? Like, get Prince on the phone. I got to have a word with him about something.
Right.
Or Tom Tricoli.
Prince on the phone. Get him on the phone. Tell him I'll be waiting for him.
I mailed the package to Paisley Park, and Pat's record was in it, right? And then Pat asked me, like, "Hey, you're driving back to Hollywood? Can you give me a ride?" And Pat and I were in a car together for about an hour, whatever. And so I'm trying to, and I'm like, you probably don't remember, but you asked me to send your record to Prince. He's like, and he just said, "Yeah, I still haven't heard from him," and that was about the extent of the conversation. So
right, unless you were the guy scoring drugs for him back in the day, he doesn't remember who you are.
So, damn, next week we got to talk about Pat Smear again because Ethan's got his own
don't
Pat
mention
Smear.
it. Don't mention it. Save it for.
That's why I'm just saying.
I know.
Like, there we are.
It's killing you.
Anyway, maybe we'll have Ethan and Pat on at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean. You may not like the Foo Fighters, but don't you at least give Pat Smear? He's got the street cred. I was surprised that they.
Foo Fighters is one of those bands, though. It's just like like whatever we are, we're all punk rockers, and it's just like so. Foo Fighters, I would think that all of us have always taken with a grain of salt. Do I hear a Foo Fighter song that I like?
I don't know any. I don't own any of their albums, so I don't know any of their stuff.
I don't own.
But
any
I know
of
on those alt rock station here in New York, they play a fuckload of those guys on that 92.3 station.
Like I've got to the point in my life where it's just like when Green Day and Foo Fighters come on and all that kind of stuff, you're like, well, at least it's not
right.
Good Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're like, whatever.
Yeah. Or one of those bands that you're listening to the top 40 station because your kid's in the car. It's not one of those bands that you're like, oh my God, not this stuff.
Either you've never
Desmond
heard
Childs
of
produced slick top 40 song.
No, the best description I ever heard of them. It's like when you walk into that bar and your only options are like Bud Light, and they have Sam Adams, and you're like, oh, okay, I could drink the Sam Adams.
I was thinking you were going to say that. I was thinking you were going to say, I was thinking you were going to say Bud Light, that they were the Bud Light of the.
No, that's the thing is they're not. They're not. They're the Sam Adams. They're
Sam Adams. They're the corporate beer, the indie beer,
and also the
contract brew.
Yeah, exactly. They're it's like if they were a band in the 70s, they would be like Foghat or Savoy Brown. Like
You're
nobody's
right.
favorite band.
Right, right.
They would just be a middling rock band. They wouldn't be like the spokespeople for, I mean, look, Dave Grohl's seems like a nice guy and
right.
He puts people on. He tries to tell the essentially our music story. This band could be your life. Like those, right? He's from that scene, and he constantly, gives it props but at some point, it's
because of that I have it rubs me, is because it's like he's always the go-to guy for the NBC Christmas special. We've got this crappy 20-year-old singer girl contest winner.
Enough time
and this and that, and then it goes down the list, and then it's like, and the Foo Fighters, and you're like, okay, here's one for the dads. For the dads that don't know anything, and it's just
the
like
go-to guy for the like the punk rock cred, where I think that like maybe
it's not even punk rock cred at this point. It's like
that might
it's
be
like
true
a
too,
rock,
but like
a rock guy for men 45 and older.
Rock.
Yeah,
but it could
guy,
be. I think that guys like Henry and maybe Ian are like. Thank God we got let Dave Grohl field all these questions. Like 15 years ago, or maybe even 20, it would have mattered to me. But now,
Chris, I disagree with you that question. It's not. Those three people are not in this. He's not in the same category with those two guys.
Agreed,
it's
but I think to a lot of other people, he would be. They would think that he would be.
No, I think what John is saying that he's the go-to rock and roll guy for men 40 and older. And if you're an executive in the television business, or I don't know, I don't want to slight John here, but then the record business, it's like, well, we got to have.
Tom Petty was that person, but Tom Petty is actually, he doesn't transcend into the, like the alternative. He's the, older. Right.
Plus, he's dead. He's older and dead.
Yeah,
did Phil Spector kill him? By the way,
yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he did. I'm pretty sure at the Hard Rock.
Did. I remember he killed somebody, but anyway, Tom Petty would have been that same touchstone. Let's just go to Tom. George Harrison reached out to him just the same way. It took another 20 years for Paul McCartney to reach out to Dave Grohl, but
Tom said no. Right, I think Tom, and so the guy who does his film production, Grohl's film production, he's a friend of a friend, right? And
get him on the show.
Wait a second, you guys, the drummer for his band is John Oreshnik. Do you know who I'm talking about? I'm trying
John
to blank on the band name.
From Send Help, a Mother MUTHER Records hardcore band, baby.
From which band now? What?
Send Help.
No. I know, but whose band is?
Sorry.
That's not connected to the Foo Fighters.
Sorry.
It is. Oh God, I'm totally blanking on it. They do like they do like the AC/DC hard rock thing. Like that's the Fireball Ministry. That's their names. Just a riffing melodic band, right? Like that kind of thing. So somewhere between Kiss and Queens of the Stone Age, like kind of in there. Very But so he's the guy who fronts that band. It works closely with Dave Grohl all the time on all of his film projects. But he goes to me, he's like, oh, if you ever need to find Dave, just hold up a microphone.
Well, I think my other problem comes with the fact that so that guy's called in all the time for here's a rock and roll. It came from the alt rock universe. He's the rock and roll guy of this certain age group, and I'm like, why isn't anybody calling Guided by Voices? They are the fucking best rock and roll band.
But you got to remember. So, but just think about what
one hit. Is there one hit?
Dave Grohl moves in those circles, right? He's like the millionaire rock star guy. Like he
right. And
he has the producer's point of view of what a rock star. Like
he fits right.
And this is not a diss on Dave Grohl. In the same way, Lenny Kravitz. Like Lenny Kravitz is sort of like he plays the role of rock star.
Yeah, but
really
Lenny
well.
Kravitz knows his. He's showboating and doing.
But okay, let's put it this way. Also, so you're not going to get Bono says no, right? But you get the thing is Dave Grohl says yes. He could say no to any of these things. He just likes doing it too, right?
Why don't these people look just a little bit further out and get somebody and lift somebody else up, bring somebody else in?
We're going to get Billy Crystal and we're going to get Dave Grohl and they're going to host a show. I'm telling you right now, it's going to work.
Live from 30 Rock.
But Tony, put on your producer. You're making a show on network or whatever, and you're like, I'm gonna get, you know, even like Henry Rollins for a while was a bit of a go-to guy in the MTV world, right? Henry Rollins was like, they had like reality shows and kind of things where, you know,
right. With Henry, like he was around. There's no doubt about it. Did he go that low?
He did. I don't think it wasn't like they had a show around him, but I'm saying he would frequently be, you know,
did Henry Rollins debase himself on TV?
No.
I'm asking you. I don't know.
I'm saying no.
I know
keep saying no, and you ask me the question. I mean, they would do something like, "Hey, Henry's going to take us to his favorite record store," and they'd have a little 5-minute thing, and he would, let me show you. Oh, there's the food section. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So he would be like the authority guy. He could say that stuff,
right?
But, sorry.
Or they, you know, or MTV and VH1 were big on these shows where, like, you know, they ask these questions, and then they get these 20 separate people on. Shoot them on green screens and then cut them all together and make 15 different shows that like top 20 things of like top 20 greatest albums, top
the entire
20
VH1
right.
It was all that, yeah.
And you see like the same people answering for all these a different question, but on different shows. And every once in a while, you'd have like Henry Rollins in that group of people. And
the biggest chance that MTV might have ever taken, like, you know, after getting off the ground and all that kind of stuff, it was like hiring Peter Zaremba to do the 120 minutes thing, where Peter Zaremba was not the like fading, like he was still. Like, are the flesh stones ever going to break? Kind of like break, you know, kind of like, and he became the host of that thing. And it wasn't like they like, we'll just take somebody who's already had a hit record that they're on their slide.
He didn't
Did
last.
They put somebody else in his spot?
120 minutes. There was that. Remember, there was that guy who hosted it for years.
I know you're talking about Dave.
Dave Kendall.
Yeah, there you go.
No, right? I remember that name now.
So Peter got in because the IRS did a show called the IRS Happy Hour, and they essentially bought an hour. They bought an hour of advertising time, and it was right. And so Peter was the host, and so he was kind of known. It was like, oh, we should do a regular, you know, and that. So he got his foot in the door that way, which is, you know, but at the end of the day,
he was great. He did a great job too. He really did.
I agree.
Like he was a great host. I loved watching him. You know,
there was the IRS Happy Hour. Then it was the IRS Cutting Edge. And,
John,
you know,
I once again I have to backtrack because I have a question that pre-COVID, if Foo Fighters came to town, New York, are they playing the Garden? Are they playing those kind of venues?
They played like Citi Field last time through.
I think right.
Yeah, they
do whatever they wanted.
Okay, right. So, you
know, to bring it all back around to the Beatles, like Paul McCartney did do like a song with Dave Grohl and stuff like that.
I recall, and Novoselic, right? It was the two guys, and it sounded good.
But, I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, it did make me think of something John Lennon might have said even as far back as 30 years earlier, where it was just like, whatever it is that we do, you know, it's just like Paul always comes around, you know, like, you know, 2, 3, 4 years later, you know, and, you know, like finally gets it, you know, like, and I think that had a lot to do with he and George Harrison had taken acid together, and they kept telling Paul to drop acid, you know, like you gotta do this. And like they were experimenting with it, or maybe George was, and John was just overindulging.
John and George. Remember, John and George went to like their dentist.
That story.
That story.
And they didn't realize it, right? But
it wasn't like, for as much as they were all supposed to be pissed off that night, like, how dare you, you know, kind of thing to his dad. But like, you know, John Bonham was like, you know, immediately like, get me more of that. What is that?
Exactly.
You know, you don't want none of this, Dewey. You know, you don't want none of this. I want some of that cocaine. Give me that.
Remember then the Paul part though is when they finally convinced Paul to do it, and then they're pissed at Paul because then Paul tells the press.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It's just really
Yeah,
right.
we
But that's
did.
classic too. It's like now Paul's like a spokesman for